I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championship.
Something stupid is coming out of his mouth.
I don't know. Maybe it's just my age. He needs his vote pulled immediately. And of course, yes, a season like this has to have a name.
Let's talk about something good about Justin Freck. What are you doing?
Season of dreams. Ohio State, my guys, are either the best or the second best program in the history of college football.
This guy is a bonehead. They love him.
I question your judgment as an adult. I really do.
I was a total hater. I know that for a fact, and I just don't get it.
Get us back our sleeves.
And say, bring me that. That's the one I want. And welcome into Juck. Appreciate y'all so much for joining me. A fantastic week 11 of college football. The very best game of the day. We're going to go over all of them, all the consequential ones. But the very best game of the day was the final game of the day, the Holy War. BYU, undefeated, travels into Utah. Utah just 4-4 this year. Been an otherwise really disappointing season. But the opportunity to beat their rival and give all the Utah fans and all the players, a good feeling in what has otherwise been a pretty crappy season and a crappy deal with Cam Rising and all the drama about him. This is 2 straight years that feel like they've just been ruined by this guy's injuries. But BYU undefeated, looking to make it to the college football playoffs. Just a 3-point favorite heading into the game, which was a real head scratcher right off the rip for a lot of people. Now, when I see something like that, I take pause and take Utah, which I did, and I won because BYU won 22-21. So Utah +3 was the winner. But this game had a lot of controversy, man. You can start off with halftime. There is a 10-second runoff that takes away BYU's opportunity to kick a field goal. And as the players are running off the field, the head referee gets on the mic and says, hold on, and has them all stop. Then they all convene, the refs, and then send them on their way. That was the first weird thing. And then at the end of the game, Utah's on defense, BYU's on offense, 4th down, Utah stops them, and then a penalty lets them keep the drive going. It was defensive holding. The cornerback held the wide receiver, they said. It was a bit ticky-tack, and it was a call that in a huge moment, I don't know. You might not want to make that call. Maybe you do. You be the judge. At any rate, Kyle Whittingham, furious, but not just him. The AD at Utah was absolutely furious, and he got on the microphone to voice his displeasure after the game, which I've never seen in my life. So the penalty gets called. BYU drives down, a couple of big passes completed, and they kick a 44-yarder to win the game. Here is Kyle Whittingham in the post-game press. Well, let's go first to the on-field. This is him confronting the ref after the handshake with So then he goes to the press conference.
Your defense obviously showed up really well today.
Yeah, I couldn't get that last stop when we needed it, unfortunately. That's kind of been the story for several games. We play lights out and just can't get that one last stop. Thank you.
Ooh, knocks over the chair. Kyle Whittingham is a very laid-back guy. He's a beast. Dude's still pushing some serious weight at about 56. And a great coach, guy I respect a ton. And that's what this rivalry is. And I don't think, many of us over here, I'm in the Midwest. I don't know. It's not a rivalry that I really, when I talk about rivalries, it's not one that I put in there. I probably should. This is a really big time rivalry. I'm trying to get from my buddy. I got a buddy that's a Utah fan, lives in Utah. And I want a little bit more of the backstory on this one, because it's one I've not really ever, dived into, like, what are the real reasons? What's it about? And I know that there is a lot that has to do with, in most rivalries, one side is the arrogant side, the side that looks down on the other one. You can look at like Texas to Texas A&M. You got the Ag school and then the haughty-taughty school, Alabama, Auburn, the same kind of way. Washington, Oregon, the same kind of way. I'm not sure if this one has anything to do with that, if this is about religion, but I know that Utah has a lot of Mormons too. So I don't know. They call it the Holy War, but it's an interesting one. I think it might have some different dynamics, and I'm trying to get the backstory on that. The point is, BYU wins. They remain undefeated. They remain in the driver's seat, controlling their own destiny to get to the Big 12 championship game. But they're not the only ones now in the Big 12 that control their own destiny to get to the Big 12 championship game. Heading into the day, you had Iowa State, who was in that pole position also to get to the Big 12 championship game. Iowa State went into Kansas. Iowa State 8-1 heads into 2-win Kansas. And again, Iowa State just a 3-point favorite. Odd, right? Kansas destroyed them. Kansas beat the brakes off them. They didn't just beat them, they blew them out, which opened the door for Colorado to beat Texas Tech and take control of their own destiny, which they did in a very exciting game that was kind of Colorado pulling ahead, Texas Tech coming back. And Texas Tech, coached by Joey McGuire, a guy I really like, a high school legend coach that actually coached Shedeur Sanders. So there was a lot of mutual respect there between him, between Dion, and Colorado did their man. They allowed a lot of points, but I was really impressed by the defense. The defense that they got there, so much better than it was last year. Travis Hunter, 9 balls, 99 yards, touchdown. They were just clutch. Every time they needed to pull away again, they did. And now Colorado controls their own destiny to get to the Big 12 championship game. Who's left on their schedule? I believe they've got Oklahoma State, who is winless in the Big 12. They've got, let me check. Let me double check just to make sure here. Okay, well, this gets a little more interesting. They've got Utah next, then Kansas. So Utah and Kansas, a pissed off Utah team coming off of that game we just talked about, who is now, I think, 4-5. Then they've got Kansas, who just got their 3rd win against Iowa State. And then they end with Oklahoma State, who's just been dreadful, got destroyed again yesterday. Mike Gundy, the most embarrassing season he's had probably in his career. But Colorado now controls their own destiny. And should they beat Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State, they have a chance to take on BYU, who I think they would be favored against in the Big 12 championship game, and get a first-round bye in the playoffs in year 2. When Deion Sanders came out and said this at the beginning of the year, it was an absolute joke. Everybody laughed. Everybody clowned. I was one of them. I was wrong. I'm so impressed by what he's been able to do with taking 50 guys out of the portal for the 2nd straight year. Total turnover. And my thought was, okay, you did this the first time, it didn't work. You're going to do it again. Just wipe out 50 dudes out of your 85 and bring in 50 new ones. It's unbelievable that they've made this work. Now, obviously, you got an advantage when you've got a first-round quarterback and a player like Travis Hunter to be able to do that with 2 awesome players. You plug in a couple more, and now you got some great skill, and they do got some great skill. But the lines of scrimmage, the defense, places that I thought they just wouldn't be able to do this, they've done it. It's a good football team, and I now think that they are going to make the playoffs. I really do. I think they're going to win that. Now, I won't be rooting for that. I'll definitely be rooting for Utah to upset them, just so I don't look like a total moron for doubting them so hard and making so much fun of them. But my prediction, I think they're going to make it, which is amazing. It really is. Props to them, man. Props to that crew. Though I will say that I've noticed Dion is actually seeming less talk, more action. His post-game pressers, it's just he just seems like more of a football coach now instead of an entertainer, which is part of the reason that I was like, just go away. It seemed like it was all about the bravado, all the other stuff. It didn't seem like it was about the football to me. Now it feels like it's about the football, and doing a great job. So props to them. I'm the moron. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Unbelievable. How about the most disgusting story in college football this year? Florida State. Florida State is absolutely pathetic. Mike Norvell is pathetic. Mike Norvell, a guy who was only taking 16 or 17-man recruiting classes so that he could go supplement with the portal intentionally. Most recruiting classes are going to be in your low 20s, really good recruiting classes are going to be in your, upper 20s. Norvell, 16, 17-man recruiting classes and go in and get 16 or 17 out of the portal. It's backfired tragically for him this year as they fall to 1-9, 52-3. They lost to Notre Dame, number 10 Notre Dame. I don't know why I'm amazed by this every week. I just am. I'm amazed every week that you have got a crew of guys that care so little that they put forth this kind of effort. They play an FCS team next week. Will they beat the FCS team? I don't know. But if they do, they're probably going to lose to Florida to end the season. And this team's going to finish with 2 wins. From top 10 preseason to 2 wins. Have we ever seen anything like this? I don't think we have. When's the last time the school that you love won 2 games? Florida State is in shambles. I mean, this is Florida State. Maybe that means more to me because of my age. I don't know. I don't know how younger people view Florida State, but this is a school that dominated a decade. They were top 5 every single year. And this is just amazing after a 13-0 season to let what happened. That's another question. Is this because of the hangover of the shun that they got last year? Or is this just was this going to happen anyway with Norvell's system of bringing in all these transfer guys, which sometimes works great, sometimes going to blow up on you? How about the other Florida schools? On Thursday, Florida Athletic Director Scott Strickland came out in support of Billy Napier, gave him the vote of confidence, said he would be back next year. Defenders of Strickland's decision, believe it or not, there were some, said that the way the Gators had played against Tennessee, against Georgia, made this a smart move. Well, that Gator team, with that fresh vote of confidence for Coach Napier, who the players apparently love and want to play for, went into Texas and were down 35-0 at halftime. Over at halftime. Quinn Ewers for 333 yards, 5 touchdowns, 333 yards, 5 touchdowns, huge explosive plays. And Quinn played good, but to be honest, like these were throws that I think any third string quarterback could make. These guys were wide open, just wide open. In Florida's defense, they were missing some starters in the secondary. They were missing some wide receivers. They were obviously, DJ Lagway didn't play, so they were on that third string quarterback who had just played last week against Georgia and played pretty good. So there are definitely some valid reasons why you lost. There are no excuses to be down 35-0 when you are the University of Florida. There just aren't. This is this dude's 3rd year. Absolutely inexcusable. I thought, we talked about this schedule all offseason, this hard schedule that Florida had, and I thought that there was a chance that it would actually be helpful to Billy Napier, that people would view this schedule as so hard that you really couldn't judge him fairly on this schedule, and he might get another year. But I don't think that's what's really come into him getting this year. I think this is AD Scott Strickland just trying, hoping against hope that his hire works out. So he wants to give it one more year. And I think by doing that is a slap in the face to every Florida Gator fan because they thought this was going to end. This was going to be over. This guy has been given every benefit, all the support staff, huge support staff. He's made terrible hires. This is his offensive coordinator. Look at this kid. This is the kid from Sandlot he hired as his offensive coordinator. His recruiting is, he finished first 3 classes, 14.6 average, so just inside the top 15. Respectable. That's the same as Dan Mullen was recruiting, and they got him out of there and said it was because he couldn't recruit. This class, 50th in the country because nobody wants to be a part of that crap. And he's taken on just as many transfers as Mike Norvell in the first 2 classes. Recruiting strategy, this guy in the class of 2024, 20 guys, only 6 from Florida. How? The bottom 10 guys, all 3 stars, only one of them was from Florida. Now, if you're the coach of Florida, the flagship school of the University of Florida, why in the world would you go out of state to recruit 3 stars? You can hit 3 stars, underrated ones like Jarquez Carter, with rocks from your campus. They're everywhere. And every one of those you go get is another relationship you make with the Florida high school, who probably the next kid will be a 4-star or a 5-star. It makes absolutely no sense, and it reeks of smartest guy in the room syndrome, which Billy Napier surely is not the smartest guy in any room. And I hope that we get to see DJ Lagway somewhere else, because this dude is an unbelievable talent. Feel terrible for the Gator fans. And just a horrible situation. How about Miami? Number 4 Miami enters 9-0, and they go to take on Georgia Tech, who beat them last year. And this was the game that Mario didn't take the knee and ended up losing the game. That was the big kerfuffle. And I said preseason that Mario, his pride got in his way. I didn't think it was a mistake. I thought it was a pride thing. And he's a good coach. They're going to win the ACC. They're going to make it to the playoff. And this was the game where Miami came. They've been living on the edge. Cam Ward has been bailing them out. This was the game it all blew up. Cam couldn't get it going. They didn't score enough points. And Georgia Tech beat them in a hilarious way. They just ran it down their throats. 270 yards rushing for Georgia Tech. Brent Key, Georgia Tech's coach, said after the game, time of possession, running the ball, stopping the run. I'm happy to see that these are things that still work. And they are. Tried and true methods to win games, particularly when you're, an 11-point underdog. They did it. It was awesome. Cam Ward set the school record, 30 touchdown passes on the day, which I thought was pretty interesting. That passes Steve Walsh, 30 touchdown passes, not a ton. I would have figured that would have been a higher record. But Miami goes down, and in the ACC, now you've got, as far as conference record goes, SMU, still undefeated conference record. And then you've got Clemson and Miami, both with the one conference loss. Clemson has 2 losses overall, as they lost to Georgia and Louisville. And Miami, just the 1 loss now to Georgia Tech. So we're still going to have a very interesting finish here, as Clemson now gets back in it. They did win yesterday. So Clemson back in it when it looked like they were out of it. And in the driver's seat in year number 1 is SMU. And their schedule plays out very nice. They're going to be favorites for the remaining games on their schedule. So they're going to be favorites to make it to the ACC championship. I'm really excited. I'm really excited about that one. And now you've got SMU and Colorado looking right now like the favorites to make it to the playoffs out of the Big 12 and the ACC. Unfortunately, if you look at those two and then you look at the top 2 teams from the Big 10 or the SEC, whoever ends up the 1 and 2 seed, we're talking a huge gap, man. A huge gap between those 2 teams and 3 and 4, which is going to really start the clamoring for a restructuring of this seeding system, which, a lot of people just cannot stand it. And I didn't think it would be so glaringly obvious when you're talking about SMU and Oregon being in the top 4. Who comes out of the SEC? I don't know yet. Who knows? But comparing them to Colorado, whoever it is, whether it's Texas or, man, Bama lost, Georgia lost, Ole Miss got 2 losses, LSU 3 losses. I don't know who it is, but any one of those teams, I'm taking over Colorado minus 14. I am. So there's a big gap there. One last Florida school, Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham, one of my favorite young coaches. Kenny Dillingham takes Arizona State to 7-2 as he beats UCF. UCF is now 4-6. These guys were ranked early in the season. And Florida on the day. They all lost. Missouri hosted Oklahoma. I think we've written off Missouri a little prematurely. Missouri's still just 2 losses on the season, 2 SEC losses. They're very much in the playoff hunt. They hosted Oklahoma. They were down 7 with 1:30. And I tuned into this game just because I had picked Oklahoma -3. And I was like, how in the hell? They had been up. And as soon as I tuned in, Luther Burden III, 40-yard pass down the sideline, beautiful catch. They score a touchdown. And then immediately after that, with a tie ball game, sack fumble, return for a touchdown. Very exciting. 30 seconds left. They score 30-23. They get the win over Oklahoma. And Missouri is very much still in it. Absolutely in it. Vanderbilt and South Carolina, the Diego Magic ran out. South Carolina 28-7. Diego Magic runs out, but Diego is suing the NCAA because he wants those JUCO years of eligibility to not count so that he can continue to play and hopefully remain at Vanderbilt. I hope if he gets another year of eligibility, I'm sure there's going to be some suitors all over the place that want to bring in Diego. Tennessee beats Mississippi State 33-14, and Nico had I believe a shoulder injury, and he was pulled for some time for the remainder of the second half. Now, Tennessee has Georgia next week, so I'm sure that had to do with the equation of pulling him. Josh Heupel said that it was nothing serious, just precautionary. I don't know. All right, let's get to a couple big games here in the SEC. LSU. We have talked a lot about last week, the home field advantage that some stadiums have is just worth way more than others. You talk about Penn State at the whiteout, Oregon at night, Death Valley at night, maybe number one. But it would have needed to be worth 40 points for LSU to do anything with Alabama last night. And LSU and BK look like total frauds. They made Alabama look like old Alabama. Jalen Milroe, for the second year in a row, ran all over them. And when he is running the ball, when he's on it, and this is what I said to Chris on Friday, when Jalen is on it, and you don't get this every week, you don't even get it every third week, but when he is almost unstoppable. Like, that team can beat anybody, probably in any era, when that kid's on it. He's just unbelievable. He is so fast. His cuts are so sharp. He's just different. He looks like when you see a 5-star running back against high schoolers, and it's just like, oh, this isn't even fair. That's how this guy looks playing against future NFL players across the field from him. It's amazing. He's so impressive. 12 carries, 185 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's scary, man. So he leads Bama to a 42-13 win and a driving rain, 311 total rushing yards for Alabama, just 109 total passing yards. On LSU's side, Nussmeier with 2 picks and a fumble, which pretty much says it all. And Nuss is a guy who I was just hearing people talk 2 weeks ago. Don't be surprised if he's the first quarterback off the board, to now people saying Nuss is going to have to come back for another year because his draft stock is just blown. So I don't deal a lot in who's going to go where in the NFL draft, but I just find it funny how quick these analysts are in and out on someone based on a couple of weeks' performances. I like Nussmeier a lot, for the record. Brian Kelly, not going to last long at LSU, losing to Bama like that, man. And he takes his 3rd loss of the year. They brought the Tiger. It wasn't Mike the Tiger. So the governor of Louisiana wanted a tiger to be on the sidelines. They used to always have Mike the Tiger on the sidelines. They stopped that like 10 years ago because it's very traumatic for the animal that's not used to anything like that to be, on display in front of 100,000 people. You can imagine that wouldn't be too comfortable. I wouldn't like it. Feel like you're in a fishbowl, so to speak, or in a tiger cage on a sideline in a stadium. So they stopped doing it. The governor wanted a tiger on the sideline. So they brought in a rental, not Mike the Tiger, who lives on campus. They brought in a rental tiger and put him on a cage on the sideline. Now, LSU, I'm told, didn't want to do this. They did not want to do this, but they did it anyway at the behest of the governor. And, bad vibes, man. Bad vibes. When I was in high school, and I hate, so there's a high school close to me named Massillon, and Massillon is a very historic high school powerhouse, though they just won their first state championship in the playoff era. Before the playoff era, when you voted, they have banners all across the stadium, like 27 of them. But they're the Tigers. Paul Brown, coach there, the founder of the Browns, Ohio State Buckeyes national championship winning coach there. Earl Bruce, Ohio State coach there. And they used to have a live tiger, a live tiger mascot in a cage at high school. When I played them in high school, they had the tiger on the sidelines, which was pretty flipping awesome. It was really cool. But yeah, I don't think they do that anymore. Let's go to the Dogs. The Dogs, baby. The Dogs, who I've said all season, Kirby does not have this team on a rope. He cannot just pull the string and get them dialed in. And then they go to Texas, and Kirby pulled the string and dialed them right in. And I said, oh, well, I guess I was wrong. But they've played bad a lot of times this year at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, first half of Georgia, first half of Bama, and then end up losing. They've played bad a lot. And it really bit them at Ole Miss in a foggy, rainy, weird day where Jackson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback, gets hurt on Series 1. I thought it was over at that point. And Ole Miss was so gritty, man. They were the gritty team, and we're not used to a team matching up with Georgia and being the grittier bunch. And Ole Miss was. Jackson Dart eventually comes back. But to be honest, it felt to me like they were the better team all day, even without him. Props to them. Lane Kiffin, not a guy I root for. I know a lot of people like him now. I'm still part of the club that can't stand him from his antics back in the day. I've not forgiven him because he still does a lot of them now, including, I won't get into that. The point is, his team, they just broke through. That was the win that they couldn't get last year. They couldn't beat Bama and Georgia for the last couple of years. They couldn't do it. And Nick Saban came on not too long ago, preseason, and said they couldn't do it because they could not compete in the trenches. Now they went out in the transfer portal. They got those bodies. They got Walter Nolan. They got Prince from Florida, and some other guys. And what do? They record 5 sacks and 9 tackles for loss, force 4 fumbles, intercept Carson Beck again, and hold Georgia to 186 yards passing and 59 yards rushing. Georgia had nothing for him. Kirby does not have this team on a yo-yo, and this Georgia team, whether they get into the playoffs or not, I think they will. They're cooked. They got Tennessee next week. Would you be surprised if they lost? I wouldn't at all. In fact, I think if it was a pick 'em, I'd pick Tennessee. I am going to do that. I'm going to pick Tennessee, even though Tennessee wasn't too awfully impressive against Mississippi State. They made Mississippi State look much better than they are. But they could be looking ahead to Georgia. Who knows? But really impressive. Ole Miss gets their breakthrough win. They have finally done it, and they're still very much in it. Let's take a look at the updated SEC standings. All right, so here are the standings in the SEC. We've got the one-loss teams of Tennessee. Let's start like this. We've got the one-loss teams in conference, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Texas. Those are the one-loss teams in conference. Now, Texas A&M and Texas have to play each other. That means you have guaranteed just the potential of 2 one-loss teams. And that means that Tennessee and whoever that other team is has to win the rest of their conference games to remain a one-loss team. I think the odds are, as Tennessee plays Georgia next week, I think the odds are that we're going to see at least one of those teams catch a second loss in conference, which means we're going to have to go to the tiebreaker for that second team that's going to play in the SEC championship. What is the tiebreaker? Well, first you go to head-to-head competition amongst those tied teams. And if it's 2 losses, we're going to see several. So we're going to go to number 2. Record versus all common conference opponents among the tied teams. So that means if Georgia, Ole Miss, and LSU and Texas are all tied, right? Record versus all common conference opponents. Well, let's say they all collectively played Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt. Hypothetically, they played those 3. They all 3 played those 3. What was their record? Well, let's say all of them were 3-0 except LSU. LSU wasn't. So LSU drops off. Now there's just 3 teams tied. All right, then we move to the next one. Record against the highest, best placed common conference opponents in the conference standings, and proceeding through the conference standings amongst tied teams. Now you've lost me. Goodbye. I'm done. The point is, there's a whole lot of shit going down this list. And I hate that that's the way we're deciding who gets to these things. And that's what you get when you get a huge conference with no divisions, which there are pluses and minuses. This is the minus, right? This is the big time minus. All right, let's move on to the Big Ten. Ohio State shuts out Purdue and 45-0. Did exactly what they were supposed to do. Flawless for the number 2 team in the country. Penn State did exactly what they were supposed to do in a little more impressive fashion. 35-6 as they hosted Washington. For the whiteout, they held Washington to 33 yards rushing, 119 passing. Kudos to Penn State. They will now be in the top 5 with the loss of Georgia and Miami. So that will leave 3 teams from the Big Ten in the top 5 with Oregon and Ohio State at the top 2 spots, probably, right? You would think nothing's going to change there. And then you've got Penn State also going to move up. They were at 6, so they're going to definitely move up into the top 5. All right, let's go to the Big Ten, where Ohio State absolutely does their man, just as they should, for the number 2 team in the country, 45-0 over Purdue. Oregon plays Maryland. They do their man in less impressive fashion, a 21-point win, but they weren't crisp. They didn't look themselves. It wasn't great. But when you cannot be great and still win by 21, that's why you're the number 1 team in the country. Penn State does their man in a little more impressive fashion to me. 35-6, they welcome in Washington for the whiteout. Held Washington to 33 rushing yards and 119 passing yards. That is stifling defense they played on them. And that, you can beat anybody playing that kind of defense. Unfortunately, nobody got to see this game because it was on Peacock, and the Penn State fans had to listen to Colt McCoy call their game. That's terrible, man. No offense towards Colt. We listened to him, Ohio State fans did, for the Michigan State game. It was awful. I mean, everybody came out of the game going, what in the hell did we just listen to? And to have the whiteout, the biggest game of the year at Penn State, you got to have a subpar opponent now because of what the TV networks have done with Washington, who's a good team. I picked Washington plus 14. I thought they'd keep it close. But that, and then on top of it, you got Colt McCoy calling your game. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, the banger in the Big Ten, Indiana hosting Michigan. Indiana trying to get to 10-0. Curt Cignetti at the beginning of the season. Purdue sucks, and so do Michigan and Ohio State. He gets his first opportunity as he ends the season with Michigan, Ohio State, and Purdue. An opportunity 1 at home. The Hoosiers win 20-15 over Michigan. A monumental win for the program, beating one of the behemoths of the Big Ten. Year 1 of Curt Cignetti, moving to 10-0 for the first time ever in the program. Unbelievable job. The first half, Indiana looked like they were going to smoke them. They were clicking. Curtis Rourke was hitting all those back shoulder throws he's so good at. Those receivers are so good. They've got dynamic playmakers, man. They're the real deal. The second half, you could see up front against their first task with NFL players on the other side that this Indiana offensive line could not hang for the whole game. They started getting worn out. Indiana's offense got shut down. The second half was just total shutdown. And had there been a competent staff on the other side, they would have lost for sure. Unfortunately, for the fans of the folks on the other side, they don't have a competent staff at all, or a competent quarterback, as Davis Warren was 16 of 32, 137 yards, 4.3 yards of completion. Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings, 3 yards a carry. Just disgusting stuff, man. But we've seen teams like Indiana come into games like these, and when they're in that first game where someone's shutting them down, they shut down and lose. Indiana overcame that, and it says a lot about that staff, about the maturity of the team, about the way they're coached. Sherrone Moore, he helped him out with another horrible challenge, costing him a timeout, and 90 seconds left before halftime. They got the ball, Michigan did, and he just let 3 timeouts, lets 30 seconds just peel off the clock for no reason. And these are the things why I call him Sherrone, or G5 Sherrone, because he belongs in the G5 getting reps like this because he doesn't know how to handle situations. He's terrible. And you don't hire a guy to learn those lessons at a blue blood program. It's just ridiculous. Michigan falls to 5-5. They're going to be 6-6. And after a national championship, that's amazing. By the way, Ryan Day was in year 4 when he lost his 5th game. Just saying. Indiana quarterback Curtis Rourke, this dude's a stud. He's an absolute stud. And I think that their next big test against Ohio State, he is those back shoulder throws, the way he's so accurate. I think that the Buckeye secondary's got their hands full. But can Ohio State do what Michigan did to them in the second half? Just shut them down up front. It's going to be a hell of a game, man. It's going to be a hell of a game. And who would have thought that the biggest game at Ohio Stadium this year would not be Michigan? It would be Indiana. It's just an amazing story. And should Cignetti beat Ohio State and do what he said in that press conference, Purdue sucks, so do Michigan and so do Ohio State. Should he do that? I think that it will be the biggest story we've seen in the last 25 years in college football. All right, that'll do me for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Week 11 in the books. We head into a week 12. It's going to be a banger. We have had so many awesome weeks of college football this year. I can't wait. This is the most tremendous season we've ever seen. Thank you so much for being with me. Please subscribe, like the channel. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm having a blast. Thanks for all the support. Talk to you soon. Juckonbucks out. Hey, it's Juck.
Juck? Who is Juck?
Juckonbucks.
Juckonbucks. Juckonbucks?
Juck. Juckonbucks.
My guy Juck. Juckonbucks.
My buddy Juck.
Juck is the Juck.
It's Juckonbucks. Okay.
Juck is junk.
The Juck eyes. The
Juck eyes.
Juckonbucks.
Junk. Juck. Not junk. Juck.